Mediumship can be some of the freakiest thing you're going to get into if you're going to do this type of work. Now, I'm not sure everybody is cut out to do mediumship work, but it's always worth a try. And if it's something that you've experienced since you were a small child, chances are you're going to take to it very, very naturally. It's not the same as tarot card reading where you buy a deck and you can just put cards on the table. Either spirit shows themselves to you or they do not. Spirit has been showing themselves to me since I was about 5 years old or so. And it was always really weird. I never talked to too many people about it. I remember my boyfriend taking me to see The Sixth Sense. And I'm like that kid. And he'd be like, yeah, right, you're full of it, you know? And I'd be like, yeah, but it's not like that. It's not like in The Sixth Sense where I see the whole scene, but there's usually like a flash. And it was only years and years later when I saw The Conjuring, where I'm like, they finally got it right. Where, you know, when you're a medium, or at least for me, it's always been the flash of the scene, and then it goes away pretty quickly. I will talk a little bit about when a spirit steps into your body, and I had not protected myself enough before I had done this one reading where a woman's father had actually taken over my whole body, and I started talking to her like she was my daughter, not my client, calling her things like little girl, or you better listen up. Things like that, talking like a very stern father to a woman who was a couple years older than me, felt very, very strange. It's not an experience I want to invite in again. I'd prefer to keep the entity outside of me and let them talk to me. Now, a client, if you are a practicing medium, you will know that often a client will come in wanting to talk to a very specific person, and sometimes that just doesn't happen. You get what you get sometimes when it comes to mediumship. For me, I needed the confirmation from another practicing psychic to tell me that I was in fact a medium, though, for me to fully get over that imposter syndrome. Luckily, you know, the Stone Lady, Terry Milton, an OG in this world in Massachusetts, she's been a practicing psychic since the 70s, had read for me, did a crystal reading for me, and had said, you are a medium. I don't understand why you're not, you know, taking money to do mediumship readings. And the fact was, I was scared. I didn't think I had the chops to really do full-blown mediumship readings the way, you know, someone like, you know, a Lorraine Warren does, you know, but I absolutely always knew that spirit had showed themselves to me. I've been seeing ghosts my whole life, or often, you know, you can pick up on not necessarily just spirits, but residual energy. In my old home, when we first moved in, I constantly heard a couple arguing down the basement. And I was like, but it didn't feel the same as like when I would see my grandfather when I was a kid. It was more that residual energy, that argument had left itself down in that basement. That argument had created energy that had just been looping and looping and looping. And actually, I highly suggest watching the smudging video and the Sacred Spaces video in order to help you eliminate if you do have any residual energies. The most important part is to not give in to the fear if you do see spirit, and just acknowledge it. Acknowledge it, because they want to be seen. If you ignore it, and pretend it isn't there, they are going to make themselves known. That's when things start flying across the room. That's when hauntings get out of control, is because you're ignoring them. That wasn't real, that wasn't real, that wasn't real. So they want to make sure that they know you're, you know, especially if spirit wants to get your attention and you're psychic. It's unavoidable, really. I'm in this work not necessarily because I want to be in this work, because it can be very, very heavy. If you're talking to people on the other side, that other person you're talking to most likely misses them. You're most likely going to start crying. I cry almost in every single mediumship session I've ever done. Just tears, you know. You're going to have physical reactions. Sweat is going to start coming out of your body. Often when I'm channeling either tarot or mediumship, I'll walk away from the meeting and my bra and underwear will be wet from sweat. And it's just energy starts to flow. And that's how I know that I'm channeling. And you've got to just go with what you're getting, even if it sounds crazy. Oftentimes, you'll just get a slight image. So I was on the phone with the client the other day, and she wanted to speak to his specific grandmother again, and that grandmother had come through several times. And but I just kept getting, who's the one with the blue eyes? And it was another aunt that had passed away. She was the one with blue eyes, I guess, in the family who had gotten the gene, and that's how she was known as. And so then I got lots and lots of messages from the one with the blue eyes. But if I went and just tried to force talking to the grandmother again, we never would have gotten as far as we gotten. So when you're a medium, you've got to express, even if it's not the person the client wants to talk to, the other people are going to step forward. You may get multiple people within one reading too. That is very, very common. Or one of the biggest requests I get is a combo of mediumship and tarot. That's why I love to do both. And I'm really lucky that I have the ability to do both. You can learn tarot. Mediumship, I do believe, is a gift you're born with. However, it does also take practice. So just like a boxer, just like any athlete, any actor, anybody, with mediumship, you have to work it. You have to work that muscle. You have to do the job. You have to tap in order to do it. If you leave it alone, that muscle is going to get weak and your gifts aren't going to work. It's very important. The meditation is very important. So make sure you watch that meditation module if you haven't already. Recognizing lower vibrational energies that you're tapping into versus higher vibrational entities. So make sure you go watch the entities section of this. Mediumship can bring you to really, really dark places. There is nothing like grief. There is no feeling in the world like grief. Grief eats you. And if you're not charging your worth on a mediumship reading, you will get eaten alive. If you're doing mediumship readings, a 10-minute reading for $20, you're going to be exhausted and you're not going to get what you need from that. You've got to charge for it because it can literally suck your soul dry. I also suggest if you're doing mediumship readings that you do not book them back to back to back. When you're on a hotline, that's a little harder to, you can't choose who you're reading for on a hotline. You pick up the call and you get what you get. And if you get 2 in a row, you better take a break because you're not going to be able to read for someone. It is the most exhausting work. And so when the stone lady told me, yeah, you're a medium, I was like, oh no. I didn't really, it was scary. It was something that I had tried to avoid. I always acknowledged spirit, but I had tried to avoid doing it on a professional level. Tried to even avoid telling people I could do that. And since I've embraced it though, it has only enhanced my readings and has enhanced my gifts. Oftentimes someone will book a tarot card reading with me and a loved one will just show up. And that's when I really blow their socks off because they didn't even want to talk to the past loved one, but I have to let them come in. If you're watching this section of the module, chances are you've been a medium your whole life. Chances are you've seen spirit your whole life. Chances are you've probably tried to talk to people about it and they blew you off. And so I'm here to tell you, you're not crazy. You did see what you saw. I was standing in front of my elevator the other day and a big black shadow just showed itself to me out of the corner of my eye. I knew it was spirit. I felt it. I got the chills. I got the sweats. I got the feelings. This person, who I believe they had OD'd in my building at one point. Even on my way here to tape, I saw someone jump off the Savin Hill Bridge. It wasn't real. There was way too high of a fence now. It looked like it had happened maybe 1920 in Boston. And when you're driving on a busy highway and you see someone, you see that image, it's disturbing. But there's a reason why that fence is there now, and I do believe someone had jumped off that bridge. It becomes a part of everyday life, though. You just keep driving. You don't get into a car accident. And if you're doing that kind of work and traveling, do know, like I went to a mediumship class one time, and there was like a group of mediums, and we were all channeling together. You better believe an entity hopped in my car on the way home on the highway, someone who had died on the highway, and decided to have a conversation with me. Just because I had left myself open. I had sort of rushed out of that to get back to my house and didn't do the work I needed to do to protect myself a little more on the way home. Know that when you open yourself up to this, you're going to see spirit everywhere you go. And that is the one thing that the Sixth Sense did get really well, is the sense of like, it just comes out of nowhere. But, you know, when you watch The Conjuring, that's way more accurate in the speed in which it happens. It is almost like sometimes, you know, it makes you question your sanity. It made me question my sanity at times. You know, when I was a child, it was a little different because you're just more accepting as a kid. Like, oh yeah, well, that's my grandfather sitting on the couch right there, and I know my grandfather died. Okay, I'm gonna just run in my room and hide because that was scary. And then you just kind of keep moving on. It's a part of your life, and if that's how you grew up, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. As an adult, you start to rationalize more. No, that was just, you know, a trick. You know, that was the lighting. That was this. That was that. But I promise you, if you've got this gift, you're gonna know it, and you're probably gonna deny it at first, and then you're gonna get here and end up having to do this work because you didn't have a choice anymore. It threw itself on you. And I'm really, really glad you're here watching this. I hope that, you know, if you were growing up seeing spirit everywhere you went and felt a little crazy, that listening to this little talk actually made you feel a lot better about who you are, because I really struggled to even just talk about it. Even doing this module for me is a little harder, because when, you know, you say to people, I'm a medium, their eyes like blow up and they start expecting you to start channeling right then and there, or, you know, and you've got to be really careful about who you talk to about this stuff. Because there are people who discriminate and who will think you're doing the devil's work, and, you know, may accuse you of some really weird stuff. So always be discerning, you know. There's nothing weirder than a group of psychics going out to eat and then them telling the waitress they're a group of psychics. It's just, it's like the waitress is gonna want a reading too. Or they're gonna run away scared. It's one or the other. You're gonna get extreme, and if you wanna do this full time and then people start asking what you do for work, I mean, I don't lie. If you wanna lie, you can. But be ready for, you know, reactions. But also be ready for some of the most life-changing experiences, and be ready to really help people. Don't be afraid to give the crazy message. You're getting it for a reason. If it seems totally off the wall, and even if your client is like, I can't believe it, I don't believe it, I promise you they're gonna call you a week later and be like, you were right, oh my God, let's book another session. You've gotta trust that you are gifted, because there are going to be 1,000,001 people that tell you that you're full of shit, and you can't. That is what leads to imposter syndrome, and that's what leads to bad readings, and that's what leads to, oh my God, I can't do this, and then going back to Starbucks to work. So I, you know, really do hope that you enjoyed this module on mediumship, and there is a lot more to it. You really want to refer to the protection module, the meditation module. In order to read correctly, like, you need to have a strong meditation practice, because your self-talk, you will start interpreting your self-talk as messages. So you make sure and watch the self-talk one as well, so that you can learn to tap into the intuition and trust what you're seeing and hearing, whether you're tarot card reading or doing mediumship work. And I really appreciate you guys buying these courses. I hope they're helpful. And absolutely watch The Conjuring too, because I do think that gives a really good example of what it's like, what the real experience, those flashes. I keep going back to the person hanging in the tree and then it just going away. And that's how you know it's real, because it doesn't just sit there. They show it and then they take off and they lead you to interpret what you just saw. You've just got to trust that is real, and that, you know, and no matter how many people tell you it's not, you know what you saw. So be strong. If you are a medium, it is not easy work, but it can be some of the most fulfilling soul-serving work you will ever do in your life. And thanks again for watching this module. Take care.